Okay, so this presentation will be brief but fun, I hope. Um, we had talked about language conventions in scholarly articles, right? And how confusing they can be, how confusing the language can be if you're not familiar with some of the terminology or the jargon and it's not in your field. So, how are you going to take something that would not be understandable to a public audience, but make it easy to digest, so to speak, easy to read, so that the information gets across? Well, I thought we would look at two of my favorite articles. One is scholarly and one is a public news article, just to see how they compare. And it's talking about the same information. In this case, it's a study on uh, penguin poop. So here we have this scholarly article with this very, scholarly title: Nitrogen inputs by marine vertebrates drive abundance and richness in Antarctic terrestrial ecosystems. All right. It sounds fancy, sounds environmental. Obviously, if you're a biologist or an environmentalist, you're probably very interested in this. Even if you are, a marine biologist, especially, you think, oh, okay, yeah, this is right up my alley. However, if you're not a marine biologist, maybe you wouldn't know anything that they're talking about. But maybe you would still find the finding interesting if only I understood what the heck they're talking about. So PBS or Nova took this article and made it into an online news article for the public to read, and aptly titled it "In Search of Antarctic Biodiversity, Look no further than penguin poop." Hey, that gets my attention right away. So, one thing about public sources is usually they are worried about readership, and usually they are looking for, how many people can we get to read this? So, an eye catching title, there is a great example. How often do you see the words penguin poop in a news article? Not very often. So obviously that gets people's attention. But it also takes the original part of the article, the original title, saying that nitrogen inputs, which are also known as penguin poop, by marine vertebrates or penguins, drive abundance and richness in Antarctic terrestrial ecosystems. So they help to enrich the soil, and create biodiversity. So they help to bring in and maintain multiple numbers of species. Right. So that's essentially what it means. And so they took this sort of complex title and made it easy to read. And they do that continually throughout the article. I've posted both of these articles, by the way, and I highly advise you to read them. They should be below this video. But they translated the words nitrogen inputs into a variety of synonyms: excretions, poop, feces, bodily waste, turds, excrement, deuce. They talk about dropping a deuce. These penguins and elephant seals too. How they infuse the soil with nitrogen. That's essentially. And how do you infuse the soil with nitrogen? If you're an animal, usually you're gonna poop it out. So they're taking something from the sea, they're moving it on land, they enrich the soil, they fertilize the soil, and then now we have all these other creatures that can um, be that can have life, live out their lives in this poop. I wouldn't think too much about that. Much smaller creatures, of course. And so notice how they took that very complex, that kind of like, oh, nitrogen inputs, what exactly does that mean? They said, oh, it's poop. Yeah, it's poop. So the person who wrote this article had a sense of humor as well. Um, so another example of a translation, from the original article: nitrogen input from marine vertebrates can spread many kilometers inland due to the volatilization of ammonia from fecal matter, thereby providing an important nitrogen source for Antarctic vegetation. And you're like, what are they saying? What are they saying there? Well, in the public article, because the nitrogen in feces can also evaporate into the air where it's blown into the wind, these halos of excrement can enrich areas up to 240 times the size of the colonies producing them. So essentially, it's the wind. That's where it's blown into the wind is kind of the key in that sense. So the wind blows it. The wind blows this nitrogen input or these feces all over the place and help to spread out, something that could sustain life. Uh, so just another easier way of putting it. And then what exactly is being, fed here? What sorts of life forms do we have? In the academic article, it says springtail species, and it has the Latin names Cryptopagus antarcticus, Phulsomnotoma octuculata. Whatever does that mean? Orbited mites, predatory nematodes? I have no idea. So why don't we go to the public article, and in the far-flung feces, we can find tiny invertebrates like mites, springtails, roundworms. So there you have, instead of orbited mites and predatory nematodes, we have mites, springtails, roundworms. Oh, okay, well that's a little easier to understand. So I think those were the only examples. Yeah, but take a look at both of those articles. See what else you can find that is, you can compare and say, how did they translate this for a public audience to understand? And practice it if you have an article. Practice it with the article you have. See what terms or what phrases, and that's actually going to be the part of this week's discussion activity. What terms or phrases do you not understand, and how would you translate them? And then your classmates are going to see, well, what you translated, and they're going to see and say, did that make enough sense? Because if not, you might have to simplify even further. Sorry. So practice. Reading translations and, so to speak, translations, and looking at, practicing your translations. And the more you do it, I think the more adept you'll get at it. So, I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with in your discussion board. So that's it for now. Enjoy the rest of your week. And if I can just end this here, take care.